What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the third episode of the Lane Financial Group podcast. I have a wonderful and very special guest for you guys today. This is somebody I like to say that we are now friends that I've just recently met over the last couple months. He is, in my opinion, a soon-to-be titan of this business. He's always on social media. He helps me out whenever I need questions asked. If I shoot him a quick text, give him a call. He came in, was gracious enough to come and tell his story, and we're gonna talk a little his story, a little business, all that good stuff like usual. So everybody, welcome Terry Spurlock. Mr. Spurlock, thank you very much.
Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you.
So let's just start off. Where you from? Let's hear your story. Let's hear
Sure,
your life
man.
story. How'd you get here? All that good stuff. Let's hear it.
Awesome, awesome. Appreciate you, appreciate you, appreciate you guys tuning in to the podcast here. Jacob's a dandy fella. I'm thrilled to get to know him through this industry. But yeah, Jacob, just for the viewers, I'm from a small town here in Kentucky. If you can't tell by the accent, real small town, less than 18,000 people live here. So of course, the 1% of the industry that we operate in is not familiar with the town I live in. The town I'm from, you either in some type of, I might as well say some type of industry such as, retail or, a gas station type business. That's all you got. And so as I grew up in this town, it's a beautiful town to grow up in, beautiful town to have your family in, super safe and super just slow paced living. But I noticed that growing up in my age, that I wanted more in my life. So, of course, when I become a little bit older, I started driving a tractor trailer, drove a rig. And so while I was driving, I'm not a big music guy, Jacob. I'm not. I'm a
Mm,
podcast guy. I love listening to podcasts. I
yeah.
love listening to ways of micro learning myself because it's super easy to read a book, but man, when you start micro dosing, it's micro learning through a podcast of the lives of other titans of our industries. You get to kind of start learning on what they did and the tips and tricks that they was able to cut a little corner here and there to get them where they wanted to be. And so, long story short, man, I listened to a bunch of podcasts and I got real like stuck on the entrepreneurship. And I was like, man, what is that? What's it entail? What does it look like for me? And so, fast forward just a little bit, I drove the truck for several years and I listened to several different podcasts. And then I ran across a guy named Ed Milet. And Ed Milet was one of the very first podcasters that I was like, this guy is legit. Like I really like listened to him. And I was listening to one of his podcasts and he was always talking about how things happen for you and not to you. And he was really talking about how he cut his teeth. And that's his terminology for a lot of the viewers who don't know about sales. What that means is you cut your teeth in some type of industry that interests you or gets you entranced into some type of sales industry. And so Ed Milet talks about where he come from, WFG, and that's World Financial Group for ones who don't know. But that is a insurance financial service industry. And so Ed Milet talked about that. I was like, man, what is that? So I started digging into that industry a little bit more. Uh, Long story short, again, brought me into being a general manager for one of the largest RV industries in the country, and ran that dealership for about 6 years. And dude, I really put myself in a position to earn commission, just like Bradley talks about all the time. But as I was growing through my time, I kept indulging in more podcasts and more learning and more learning. So from Ed Milet, I then introduced to Andy Frisella, and then Andy Frisella was one of the huge titans of our industry. He's the owner and the CEO of First Form Energy, First Form Protein, First Form Supplement Company, massive, massive organization out of St. Louis, Missouri. And so this guy then introduced me to Brad Lee. And this was about 12 years ago when he introduced me to Brad Lee. And like I said a while ago, I put myself in a position to earn commission, Jacob, and that was getting me into some type of sales industry where I landed in the RV industry and worked my way up as a general manager. Then from there, dude, I stayed in the matrix, man. I was in the matrix for several years to where I'd go to work and I would work and I'd come home and I had nothing for my wife and kids. No energy for my family, no energy for my church, no energy for my community. I was just killed, man. 7 days a week, killed. I was like, man, there's got to be more than that to this life. And then that's why I kind of went back into the podcast realm and learned the different industries, which got me into financial services, which is where we landed today.
Beautiful. I love your story, and this is something obviously me and you have talked about that privately.
Hmm.
I've always been interested since, we've been talking to each other and getting to know each other, like, did you like working RV sales and doing what you were doing before this? Did you like
Oh,
it, or was
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
more of like I had to make a paycheck from a family? Or
It
did you
started
really
out
love
as
it?
a Yeah, it started as a really enjoyment. Like I really enjoyed working with the families because I wasn't selling RVs, dude. I was selling memories. I was
Yeah,
selling those moments where these families would come
I
in.
love how you put that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they would come
that's
in,
key.
and I would see that the wife and the husband with their children. They'd be like, "We're gonna buy
Mhm,
this RV." I'm like, "Where are you going to take it? Where's that place you're going, guys? Tell me about it. Let me see what that looks like. We're going to the lakeside. Man, it's beautiful." And then
mhm,
I sold memories, and so then it began to not be about the memories anymore. It started becoming a job, and
mhm,
then when it started becoming a job, that's when the matrix happened, and I was looking at numbers and looking at organizations and looking at scaling and growth, and the selling of the memories kind of faded away. And when that faded away, so did the fire for the industry for me.
mhm.
Yeah.
Is that kind of when you made your, like, okay, I gotta do something else?
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as
Yeah.
that happened, that internal clock in your head of, like, you know what, like you said earlier, actually, there's got to be more. That
Hmm.
was there one specific moment that where you didn't feel like you were making memories anymore and it became more of just a job? Was there like a specific moment, or was it more just kind of over time, just that wear and tear that everybody goes through of clocking in every morning, clocking out, like, was it kind of a long process, or was there something specific that might have happened?
It started out, let me put this in perspective. It started out fine at the very beginning.
Mhm,
Like I started realizing the painting on the wall, like, yeah, this is turning into a job versus more that I used to enjoy. But
mhm,
I had 60 employees that worked for me. So I really like their point of view was my point of view. So I wanted to make sure I put everything in place for them. That way that they could put food on the table for their families.
mhm,
But they're like when I started learning and started seeing that I was doing them a disservice for me being there because I wasn't 100% dialed in. I wasn't 100% plugged into their business or the business. I was
mhm,
just showing up because it was a work. And then when you have to be at work say 9 a.m. and you're rolling in at 9 a.m., you're
mhm.
really not there. You're
Yeah.
there just to clock in. When someone shows up at 8:30 and getting their day ready, those are the people who are ready. Like those are the people who are showing up and they're ready to learn, they're ready to put their work in. I was the guy that was showing up at like 9:10 because I was just like, man, I'm just done. I'm so burnt. But nothing really set it off until I started seeing my children grow up before me super fast. And when I come home from work and man, I'd be like, dang, man, my kid's already 15 years old. Where did it go? They and that's when it started really starting to set in on me. That weight started pouring down on me, and then, dude, it really just it messed with my mind to the
Mhm.
point where like I wasn't born to pay bills. That wasn't why
Yeah.
we are born. We're not born to come to work and pay bills and die. That's not it. I have a very strong faith, and my faith is that the good Lord put us here on this planet for us to enjoy His creation
Mhm.
and then enjoy each other. Enjoy
Yeah.
friendships, enjoy family, and we wasn't created to, like I said, show up, pay bills, and then die. That's not
Mhm.
it. I believe we have to work to eat. We have to work to provide. We have to work to
Mhm.
build a future that we want. But at the same token, why not do that for yourself? Why not do what you want to do in your life and create that income that you want to do in your life to open up the opportunities that you can be with your friends and family? And that's where when that stigma started getting into my mind and my heart, I was like, man, I am so done with this matrix lifestyle.
Yeah.
I've got to figure it out. And then boom, I go back to my micro dosing of podcasting, reading books, and self education. Because what we know, Jacob, not everybody knows.
Mhm. 100%. That is a big one. That last sentence I have told so many people since I have started this adventure of, no matter what, I'm taking something out of this. There were things that I learned just getting licensed that I was like,
Hmm.
I wonder how many people know that, because I didn't. You bring it up to people,
Exactly.
and they're like, what? Like, that's a thing? And it's just like, whether I do this for the rest of my life or this is a 5-year thing or whatever, like, I know I got a value out of this that I can take it with me forever, and
Yep.
I like how you put that. Another thing I kind of want to touch on, like, before we move past and get into some other stuff. What was it like growing up in Kentucky? Like I have family that are from, Tennessee, Kentucky, and all that, but like what
Mhm.
was, for you as a kid, like kind of, I'm assuming, and so tell me if I'm wrong, obviously, but was it that old school, like, hey man, get up, get your lunchbox, go work 12 hours, come home, like was it more like that, or were your parents maybe different in that sense? Because again, like just knowing how I
Sure.
grew up, like we grew up, my dad works at GM. Dad woke up every morning, made his lunchbox. He'd go work, anywhere from 8 to 16 hours sometimes, depending on if we needed the money. And that
Yep.
was how me and my sister were raised, where it was, hey man, get up, work hard, feed your family, and hope you make it to 70. Like,
Oh,
like that was
dude,
always the big thing. So did you kind of grow up the same way?
dude, that's such a good question, Jacob. And I want to back up a little bit. I want to tell you exactly how it was for me.
Hmm.
Like I said, I grew up in a small town here in Kentucky, and dude, I grew up in a holler. And the holler, what I mean by it is you turn up this road, and on the end of the road said Spurlock Road,
Yep.
and that's where all of my family lived at. So that was a holler. All
Yeah.
my aunts and all my uncles and my cousins, we all lived within walking distance from each other's homes.
Hmm.
Dude, that was beautiful, man. Like I grew up in such a way that, I'd get home from school and I go play with my cousins, have a great time. But my dad's been gone now for 17 years. But when I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur. My
Hmm.
dad, in the very early of his age, he worked in the coal industry, like when what majority of the Appalachians are.
Hmm.
They worked in some type of coal industry. So my dad drove a rig for the coal industry, and so did my uncles and my grandfather. But when I was born, my dad got out of the coal industry and said, "I want to start my own business." And so my dad actually done automotive cosmetics and automotive like repair, like painting and window film and but if you want to picture who my dad had long, luscious hair. He didn't have a beard on his face. He had a little mustache. My dad was one of those old school hot rod guys that could go out there and pinstripe those
Yeah.
pinstripes on his old hot rods. And so that's who my dad was. And so my dad would get up early in the morning, he'd have his coffee, smoke his cigarettes, and he'd get his lunch ready, like you said, just like you said. But he'd go out to the garage and he'd work on cars all day long and tractor and
Hmm.
trailers and rigs and he just loved that. And then as I got older, my dad and I started working together in the business. I would go to school and I'd come home and I'd work with him until dark.
Hmm.
And in the summertime, my father and my mother would send me to my aunt sometimes, which is in Lexington, Kentucky, and I would go visit with them. And they had a horse park that we looked at, and we helped there too, me and my cousins. But majority of the time, dude, I was there helping my father, doing anything I could to help him put food on the table. Um, but when I became 12 to 13 years old, my father bought me a four wheeler, an ATV, and I said, "All right, I'm gonna go start doing mowing grass." And
Hmm.
so I would go out on the up and down the holler. I'd mow grass
Hmm.
off my four wheeler. I had a little trailer, my little lawnmower, and I started having my own little lawn mowing business, man. At
Yeah.
12 to 13 years old, and I would travel within my community outside of the holler of protection, and I would do that up until I got to where I could drive, and I started transitioning to detailing cars.
Hmm. That's
And
awesome. So
so
you've
the
always had
hustle
that
mentality is always
entrepreneur.
there.
You've always had that in you then.
Yeah, it's the
It's
dog in you, man. It's
yeah,
always
well,
been
and that
there.
yeah, and that but especially growing up in a holler, man, like that's pretty forward thinking, especially for back in the day where like you said, like most people in the Appalachian, you're working in the mine,
That's it.
and that's it.
Yep,
Like
that's all that's there. Yeah.
how
Yeah,
many
you're working a
people
coal
can you
mine.
really go back? I mean, really just throughout history. I'm sure there's more than I know, but like there ain't a whole lot of people that are not commonly known for living in a holler.
Right. Yeah.
Or
That's
certain
kind of a dying
businesses
thing. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
wasn't a thing, other than, like you said, like your little gas station at the end of the road.
Yeah. That's it.
Like that's awesome. Did you said you used to drive the rigs around.
I did.
Were you doing that, and like for helping, your father out for work, or was that
Mhm.
just because you wanted to?
That was actually when my dad was passing away of cancer.
Hmm.
Um, so I took a time of leave I graduated high school and I went
Hmm.
to college and got my associate's degree in business and got all that as I was going up. But when I was in college, right when I had just got my associate's degree, my father come ill with cancer. And so I had to go to work. And what the only thing around me at the fastest work was some type of freight driving
Yeah.
or going to the coal mine. And so I didn't
Never
go
mind
into
the
the coal
jingles.
mine. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'll drive a truck. And so at the time, I was under 21 years old, so I wasn't allowed to get my CDL. And so,
Mm.
but I could ride right seat as a just a regular employee. And
Hmm.
so I would ride right seat and help these guys do the freight until I become of age of 21 to get my CDL. But the only reason why I done that is because, as you mentioned earlier, most communities, your mothers stay home.
Hmm.
Your mothers stay home, take care of the home, take care of the children, feed, and do all
Especially
that.
back in the day.
Yep, yep. And so that was how my mom was. My mom was she stayed home, took care of me and my sister. And but when my dad fell ill, my mom actually fell and tore her ACL in her leg. So, and there was no way that my mother could go out and get a job and provide
Yeah.
for any kind of bills. And we wasn't blessed to be able to get any type of government assistance
Hmm.
with that. When my dad was going through his cancer surgeries and his cancer procedures, we fronted all that, and so that was tough, man. So my
Oh, yeah.
sister and my sister and I, we would go and get loans and help take care of the bills and take care of the house and take care of my family, and then I would drive a truck because that's the fastest way to get cash at that time, and then it just led into me driving full time.
I mean, you could still argue, like that's my background. Not driving, but I was a mechanic, a diesel.
Hmm.
So great industry. Like not, it's still like that
Oh
to this
yeah,
day. Like I just got out of it just a couple months ago. Like it's still a good way
yep,
to make money. Like you're saying, like you're always going to have a job. If you're driving the truck
always.
or fixing the truck, it's, you know, it, you can make the arguments that that's the backbone of America right there, keeping the food moving and everything. Did you enjoy it, or was it again more just like a job because you had to, or because I started when I started wrenching, it was kind of just I was 19,
Hmm.
just stopped playing hockey, didn't know what I wanted, or 20, whatever it was. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I just happened to know a guy, went in, and I fell in love with it. I loved being around it. And then
Yeah.
over time, it became, man, if I have to argue with one more driver, like I'm gonna slap this guy's teeth out of his mouth. Like, please stop talking to me. Like, so did it kind of get
Yeah.
like that with you, or did you? Because I always like
Uh,
whenever I fix a truck and I got to take it out on the road. I always loved. I had a blast doing that. It was always really fun. Did you have kind of that same, or was it more just, this is what we got to do because Dad's sick?
At first, it was that. At first, I needed to find whatever way can
Hmm.
to cover the bills, cover the expenses, and then when I when I got my own license to drive
Hmm.
and operate the truck, that's when it became fun.
Hmm.
At first it was a job, and then my dad passed, and several years went by after that. Once I got all that covered and cleared, I was like, all right, now it's time for me to get into a truck. So I transitioned from doing a freight and retail truck over
Hmm.
into which is what now everybody knows, which is Red Bull. I
Hmm.
went and got into that vendor industry and started driving a truck for Red Bull North
That's
America
cool.
here in Kentucky. And I was one of the original five guys here in Kentucky that done Red Bull and distribution in the convenience stores.
Hmm.
So us five took over the entire state of Kentucky, and we would have pretty much, if you look at the state of Kentucky and you look at the I-75 all the way from Florence all the way down to Williamsburg, right east of the whole entire state of Kentucky, that was my territory. So
Hmm.
I territoried all the whole right hand side of the eastern side of the state, and so I drove a tractor and trailer for a little bit to storage buildings and drop the freight
Hmm.
off, and then I would go back in a smaller truck, a little box truck, and unload out of those storage buildings into my box truck and deliver the product to the stores. So I would have to go out and tell these grandma and grandpas and these other type of convenience stores about the product I'm trying to sell them, which is Red Bull. We only had
Yep.
two sizes. Now there's all different sizes,
Yeah.
different flavors.
40
But we only had,
flavors.
yeah, yeah. So we only had the two. And I'd go in there and I have to pitch them this product. Hey, this is the new best thing. The kids are going to love it. It's high
Yeah.
energy. We're going to replace your coffee. And I had to really pitch that product and
Hmm.
and 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 we did it, man. Us five guys did that to the point where Red Bull North America came in and said, "All right, guys, you got it built to where we can come in and take over." And then went from us doing our own product delivery with tractor and trailers to where they would bring in like actually routes. And like what
Yeah.
you see now, you see Red Bull trucks everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and what's funny about that is well, we've talked a bunch of times, and I didn't know this, but My brother-in-law does something similar right now. Like he
Okay.
actually just got his CD, or he's going for his CDL this week. Basically doing the same thing, which I just think that's small world, how little things like that you can connect with people about, you
Yep,
know.
yep. My only
Um,
non-negotiable was I had to be able to have my earbud of some sort. Well, back then it was a cable because I had to stay plugged into some type of
yep,
something, man.
the stimulation of it,
Yep, I had to have it. Yep,
100%.
yeah. So that's one reason I kind of tethered toward the driving vendor
Yeah,
style.
100%. No, that's awesome.
Yep.
Hey, and let's transition here a little bit. So you're driving the truck, doing the RV sales, you're doing all this different stuff. I know you said you get plugged on these podcasts, you find Bradley.
Hmm.
When you find Bradley, um, is it almost like an immediate, like, man, I gotta get with this guy? Or did it kind of take a little bit of time listening to him? Like, 'cause me personally, like I was telling you before we started this, I found him because a dude that gambled that just popped
Hmm.
up on my feed, and I started listening to Brad. Now I'm listening to David Pena and PBD and like all these different people, and I'm like, man, this has got to be an option.
Yep.
The only reason that me and you know each other is because of this
Bradley.
podcast that he does, and then I sitting at home on Instagram one day, and one of his Instagram stories pops up, hey, you want to come make untapped commission or uncapped, excuse me?
Hmm.
Hit the link. Then I got Derek, some dude from Texas, calling me saying, "Hey, man, let's sit down and Zoom and talk about it."
Yeah.
How was that for you? Was it immediate when you first listened to him talk about it? Did it take some time? Who reaches out to you first? All that gets like, tell me how you get to where you are now.
Oh, dude, man, that's an interesting story. And so Bradley was dropping bombs. If you guys don't know, he was viewing Dropping Bombs is the podcast that Jacob's talking about. And it has transitioned quite a bit over the years. But
Yeah.
like over a decade ago, it was when Bradley's very first podcast came out. I think he's 900 and some odd episodes deep now in his podcast. Now, when I first came into the industry, well, I come into meeting Bradley, I'm sorry. When I first met Bradley, I was still in a truck. I was driving for Red Bull. And like I said, Andy Frisella introduced me to Brad Lee
Mm,
because they was on each other's podcast. Andy Frisella done a podcast called the MF CEO Project, which is helping entrepreneurs untap the potential that they have lying within, knowing what to do, steps to take, who to listen to, what books to read, those type of setups. And so Bradley came on there and was on the podcast with him. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but when Bradley spoke, the way he articulated his verbiage and the way he talked and he spoke on the podcast, I
mm,
could resonate with him. And I guess it's because Bradley was a car salesman. Bradley
mm,
was, he wasn't the titans of our industry that just got a lucky card. He was homeless at one point. He ran away from home at one point. He lived in Oregon and then moved down to California, lived on the beach. I mean, his story is magnificent. And he said one phrase that really got me. And he says, if I can do this, you can do this. He says,
mm,
I'm not special to nobody else. The only thing I done was outwork the person who I wanted to be. He said, find the person that you want to be, the lifestyle that they have, and understand what they're doing and just outwork them. I was like, okay. So that really stuck with me. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start listening to this guy's podcast. So, of course, I backtracked and went to the very beginning and caught up. And now I've listened to every single podcast he's ever put out. But anyway, so long story short for you, Jacob, man, a little over 2.5 years ago, I got my life insurance license, and I was out door knocking, selling final expense to Betty's all over the country, dude. I was driving to Virginias and West Virginias and the Carolinas and Tennessees and Alabamas and Georgias. I was
mm.
going out and selling the final expense to Betty's, and well, I had a guy pull a gun out on me. And literally, he cussed me from one side to the other, said, "You don't need to be here," and all that. I'm like, dude, you suck. I'm out of here. So I backed out of the driveway and I turned on my podcast to kind of get back in my zone again. And that podcast with Bradley and Sean Mike comes up. And I had heard it before, but I never dialed into it. And then he was talking about how this industry is really taking off. And Bradley, he said, "Well, I think I'm going to do one myself." And so he started Real Financial with Andy Elliott at the very beginning. And so I actually messaged Bradley on Instagram. This guy's got over 2 million followers, and just on Instagram alone, not counting Facebook or YouTube or all the other socials. I messaged him, was like, "Hey, what do you think about life insurance? What's your takeaway on it?" And he didn't think at all, Jacob, that he would respond back to me. And so he texted me back on Instagram. He's like, "Hey, let's chat. Here's the link." And he sent me a link. We jumped on a quick call, real quick, and here I am. You and I are doing.
Hmm.
Brad Lee and I are doing this. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude. I was like,
No,
who is this? I
struck.
was celebrity struck, dude. I was like, there is no way you're responding to me. And he's
100%.
like, dude, I do real financial. We had a little hiccup, and we're changing some things. Love to have you on the board. And so he gave me a link to the Slack app, which we use.
Hmm.
And then on that Slack app, I'm sitting there and I'm jumping on the national calls. And you guys are going to get to see you meet him here in a couple of days. Mr. Brad Bloomquist was doing the national calls, and I was listening to Brad's story, and so I sent Brad Bloomquist a message. I was like, "Hey man, I'm wanting to join Real Financial." And so Brad sent me the link. Him and I jump on a Zoom and we talk it out and figure the logistics out because I was already pre-contracted from different carriers, and we
Hmm.
got all that stuff taken care of. And that's where we are today. And less than 6 months after I joined Real Financial, I'm in Vegas meeting Brad Lee in person. And so we get to have dinner together. Brad and I are sitting down at the dinner table. He's sitting to my right side, rednecking me on my lobster, and I'm rednecking him on his steak. And we're just having a great time talking conspiracy and having a great time, man. Just
Yeah.
a surreal moment. And then I get to speak on stage with him in January of this year, and tell my story and tell how you can do the
Mhm.
exact same thing that I've done. And dude, it's just a surreal. And then I think that wouldn't be done if it wasn't for a leadership like Brad Lee.
100%. No, I fully, fully agree with that. Like, just the kind of, yeah, I always tell people, like, the kind of good, just good natured dude that he is what
Hmm.
makes it work. It makes
He generally
somebody
wants
like
people to win. He
myself,
really does.
yeah, and it's like somebody like myself, I turned wrenches for 8 years after finishing high school. I didn't know nothing about no financial stuff. Like, I knew the paycheck hit Friday. That was it. I knew how to put money in my 401k, and that pretty much taps it right there. And to sign up for the
Hmm.
life insurance at work. That's it.
Yep.
And then you get a guy like me who comes in, you listen to him talk, and he'll take the moment to say hello to you and talk to you.
Yep.
Like, I passed my license exam. Who's the first person saying thank you or
Right.
congratulations? It was
Brad
Brad.
Lee. Hmm.
Dude, I'm a nobody. I hadn't
Right.
made a dollar. Nothing. Like, he didn't have no business saying congrats and giving me this, just that 15 seconds it probably took him.
Hmm.
That's what makes it work is Brad being Brad.
That's it.
Like, he doesn't highbrow you because he could highbrow every person in this company if he wanted to, but he
Oh,
doesn't,
dude.
you know.
Dude.
Um,
So true.
for that, this is actually like a good, kind of transition a little bit. Given what we're saying about how the company is run, and it starts at the top with Brad, you get somebody that is interested, what are you telling them? How are you going to explain the opportunity from your perspective of what this company can give to somebody?
Oh, dude, that's a great question, Jacob. Super good question. And so, dude, like, man, the way I talk to people when I approach them who's wanting to take the same opportunity like I have and like you've got, man, first things first, I'm asking them, are you tired of working in the matrix? Are you tired of clocking in at 9 o'clock and clocking out at 5 p.m., going home and having no energy for your family, no energy for your church, no energy for your community? Yeah, is that you? And they'll say yes, no, maybe so. I segue a little bit there. But the biggest thing that I always ask them is this very one thing. Are you tired of making someone else rich? Are you tired of that? And then every dude, I don't care what they are, or a strong business lady, but mindset woman, no matter what they are, man or female, if they have that mindset, they're going to lean back and they're going to go, I am pretty sick and tired of making someone else rich. I said, would you want to make yourself that money that you can make in, Tom, who sits in the Oval Office and barks orders at you all day? And they say, yeah, I want that. I said, now the hardest part is getting licensed. You have to legally be licensed to do what we do. After that, it's all easy. It's simple. Just like you and I are doing, Jacob. That's all it is talking and making relationships. And they're
The more
like,
hands you shake, the more money you make.
That's it, man. Your network is your net worth. That's the all quotes from the BL man himself. Like he just,
Mhm.
but like, dude, like that's the very first thing I always ask people is like, are you sick and tired of making someone else rich? And then if they aren't, then they're not cut out for this business. And if they are, they're going to do whatever it takes to make them that money for them and their family.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's a great way to put it. It's that old the old cliche of, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm living the dream. At least that's
That's
what they tell
it.
me to say. But
That's what they tell you. Say,
that's that's all
yep.
it is. I love how that's because that's kind of how I look at it too.
hmm
So I just, I think a lot of us probably, if you polled every person in our company, that answer worded differently is
Yeah.
probably getting a 99% hit rate. That's
Very
the first thing
repeatable.
that people are
Everybody's
saying.
going to repeat the same thing.
Yeah,
At least, like you said, yeah, some way or another.
100%. And then, so you do this, they say they want the opportunity. You go through your whole training, or,
hmm
training, interview, all that stuff. What's the one thing? And I asked Derek this question, so I'm curious on what your opinion is. What is the one big mistake or one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's just starting out, that you see people make that one mistake? So your advice is basically, hey, don't do this because this is when people quit before they should. What's that one thing in your mind?
Ooh, yep. That's a 2 point question for me. 1 point is don't come into this opportunity think you're going to make $1 million the very first month in the business
Mm.
because you're not. You can make $1 million in this business. Yes, you can, but not day one. You got to learn the products. You got to learn how to articulate it. You got to learn how to talk the products. You got to learn how to walk the products. You got to learn how to believe in the products. So that's the very first thing. Second thing is this: start with your chicken list. If you don't have a
Explain that to
chicken
people
list
who
of
might not know what that is.
So the chicken list for folks who don't know what that is, that's a list of people that's in your contact. You have a phone in your pocket. That's a digital Rolodex. You have over the time of your career, your lifespan, you have put people's phone numbers in that phone. And you back in for you young folks who are watching this, a Rolodex is a little box that used to put on people's desk and they would rotate and pull a card out. That's a Rolodex. And so I call your phone, your contact list is a digital Rolodex. So your contact list could be whatever, 100, 200, 300, 400 people. Now, I ain't saying go and sell them a product, your friends and family. But I'm telling you is to look in that contact list, and if you look at Jacob Lane's name, like, ooh, I'm a little scared. I don't think I want to talk. I don't want to tell him what I do. And that's your chicken list. If you're scared to talk to somebody and tell them what you do for a living, that's a chicken list. Call that person because the more people you contact to, and I ain't saying you're going to sell them a product or help them in any way. I'm just saying you're going to get over your stage fright to be able to talk to people, to tell them what you do. Because the more people that know what you do, the more opportunities you're going to have to help those people. And so that's the two things I tell every agent coming in is build your chicken list. I'm talking. I want it to hurt you. I want you to go through your phone or your contact book, and I want you to look at those names and be like, "Ugh, I really do not want to call Jacob. Him and I ain't spoken in 3 years, and I don't know. I just don't want to talk to him. You're gonna call him. And two is don't think you're gonna come in this business day one making $1 million because if you don't make that money you put in your mindset you're gonna make the very first month, you're gonna quit. Cody Askins is the guy who runs Kaboom Leads,
Mm-hmm.
and he built his whole entire brand off of that percentage of fallout, which is 8%. They're saying 92% of agents that come into this industry, they fall out and burn out and fizzle and quit within the first, 60, 90 to 120 days. Just because they come in with anticipation that they're going to make that $1 million. Because they see the Instagram and the YouTube reels and the TikTok guys, flexing these rental cars and flexing these fake Rolexes and what I'm saying, that
Oh yeah.
persona. And so, and I ain't saying I ain't discouraging any viewers. You can make very good money in this industry, very good money, but you can't come into it not knowing how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's, I can speak on it because obviously I'm just getting started.
Mhm.
It's not easy. Like especially the calling people, because that's something like how we structured. And we'll get another question based off of this part here, but like how we structured is you're gonna do your warm market first.
Mhm.
Before you do anything else, call the people that you know.
That's
Whether,
it.
like you said, whether you've talked to them yesterday, that morning, or it's been 10 years, pick up the phone and call them. And that's the hardest part.
Hmm.
Like I've had to get over that. That's part of why I started doing this because it's in my head, it was an easy way to bridge that awkward, hey, how you doing? Like
Oh
it was
yeah.
like, hey man, I'm doing this podcast. Come check it out. And then they come back and go, hey man, that's great. So what
Hmm.
exactly are you doing? And that's kind of, to help me bridge that little gap. But it's doing little things like that that everybody will tell you, hey man, social media, you know, post nonstop. Like you and Derek, nonstop on my Facebook. My wife and I have a joke. If we don't hear Derek, what's going on, everybody, on
Yep.
Facebook Live, we get concerned, and I have to send him a text to make sure he's okay because we get
Man,
concerned
he is on point with that, man.
every time, and
Yep.
it's become a joke. But it's things like that. He's like, dude, you just got to do it. It's gonna be
You gotta
awkward.
stay in front of somebody.
It's gonna be awkward. You're gonna look back later and go, boy, them were some rough videos. Like I'm sure I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
look back
dude.
on this and be
Yeah.
like, ooh, damn, that was bad.
Yep.
But
But the ones you're making better content every day.
and that's all you can do with everything. Like
Mhm.
you come in and you're not wrong. Getting licensed, that is hard.
It's hard.
It's a lot of it, not hard. I always say like it's hard because there's so much information at one time that
Oh yeah.
myself, a lot of people don't know this is a thing. Like just
Hmm.
little things that you're like, this should be taught when you're a junior in high school.
Dude, so true.
Like,
So true.
but there's so much, and then it makes you feel stupid because you're like, how did I not know this? I'm an adult.
Hmm.
Like I'm 27 years old, and I'm like, how do I not know this? But
Yeah, how
you
did I
don't
not
know
know
what you don't
indexing
know.
was a thing?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Like mortgage protection shit.
Yeah.
Didn't know there
Yeah.
was life insurance policies that help you with your mortgage. I didn't know
Hmm.
that.
Oh, dude.
There's a bunch of
Yeah.
people that have owned houses that I'm friends with that didn't know that.
Hmm.
So it's so much. But where I want to that question based kind of off of that, like you're talking to somebody, they reach out, say, hey, I'm interested. Like, you set up a Zoom or a phone call, whatever it is. What's the reason that you're telling them, hey, you need to come here and not, hey man, don't go work for Nationwide or
Yeah.
like whatever. Like don't go work, come work with us. What's the reason that you're telling somebody, especially
Oh,
especially a younger person like myself, who's going to have
dude,
that skepticism of this industry as it is?
that's so good. Because reason why I think it's so good is because before I door knocked, I done that. I did. I was very skeptical about looking at an organization that practice company as that I was with, because why not go for a Nationwide or a State Farm or a Transamerica or one of those big name box stores,
Mhm.
because those are household names. And so
It's like going to work for GM and Ford. They're the establishment.
they're established. But you got to look at I had this conversation with an agent just the other day, actually, and I was telling the agent, I was like, man, you just got to look at the bigger picture. Okay, we are what they call, for you listeners, we're what they call independent brokers, and what that really means is that we work with the top 25, 30, 40 top A-rated companies across the nation. Now, a captive agency is those state farms, farm bureaus, Transamericas, whatever mutual nationwides. Those are captive agencies, and what that means is they're only limited to one, maybe two of those carriers. And so when I talk to an agent about coming with us and differentiating the two of the captive and non-captive agencies, I mean, wouldn't you sit down with a friend of yours or a family member of yours and say they had a little health hiccups, maybe a class B health? And what I mean by that, Jacob, is when I talk to every client that I have, I classify A, B, or C health. C health is those ones who are in nursing homes, maybe prone to oxygen, maybe need a little help with assisted living, had kidney dialysis, maybe had a cancer at one point in time. Those are C health. Those guys have some health hiccups. They've had a pretty tough time. The B health is those ones who are just on some kind of like maintenance medication, blood pressure medication or blood thinners, or maybe a couple procedures that they've had that's kind of really messed their health up. And then you got your A, which you triathlon winners. And so ask him this question. And so, say if you got a friend or family, maybe let's say it's your mommy, and she is a Class B health. And you say you're at Transamerica or you're at Nationwide. You said Nationwide, so you're at Nationwide, and you go and you set your mother up a policy, and you she gets declined. How will that make you feel as a trained financial professional in the insurance industry that you can't even get your own mother some type of coverage because you're limited to what carriers and what companies that you have to offer? And then so that makes me feel real bad. I said, wouldn't that make you kind of feel like a failure in a way? I said, yeah. I said, you can't even take care of your own mother. I said, all right, now let's put the shoe on this foot. And you're a non-captive agency now, and you have 40 of the top A-rated companies. You get to go work, and you get to call these carriers, and you say, I've got a client here that's got XYZ. What's my rates? What's my terms? You don't do it? All right, great. I'll move on to the next. And you do that for all your clients and all your customers because with a captive agency, they're going to be limited to two products, like I mentioned a while ago, and they say their monthly premium might be $100 and $150. As us, as a independent brokerage, we can take that 150 and 200 $100, $150 a month, and say it's only 100 to $150,000 in coverage. We can take that same monthly premium and give them maybe a half a million or maybe $750,000 in coverage for the same amount of premium they're paying to a captive agency, just because we have the ability to reach out to our broad is so much larger because we have the ability to speak the language to much larger group of companies. And so that's how I would tell them. It's like, hey, listen, it's all cool and dandy to work for Nationwide. Man, it's awesome. You get to have your own little Nationwide on your side
Hey,
type logo. Yeah, that's cool, dude. It's all cool. But man, it's deeper than that. You gotta
mhm,
have a deeper conviction of wanting to help someone versus just work for a home staple type
mhm.
company.
And yeah, no, that hey man, that's church right there. I
Hmm.
don't know how else to put it. Like, but that's piggybacking it. Like, you gave the example of like, hey, we can go from 100, to half a million of coverage. We can also go lower too, where a lot of the
Bingo.
big companies know you're going to hit here because you've got a quota.
Hmm.
You got a
There
quota
you
that
go.
you got to hit, and if you go to that $30 a month, you're not going to hit that quota. But we
Nope.
don't have quotas. We don't care. It's
Nope.
no, let's get what works for each person. I always like how Derek put it. What's your unique situation?
Bingo.
Every person is different. So yeah, I can sell somebody or provide, I should say, a service where they might spend $400 a month.
Hmm.
And then the next person I talk to, it's like, dude, I can do 30.
That's
Cool.
it.
And we're gonna find whatever, like you said, we got over 30 carriers. I'm gonna find the one that works the best at that same
Yep.
price. Like that's I love how you put that though. Like given that example of like, yeah, what is, if you are working for one of these big companies, it's great. You're gonna have a job, you're gonna pay your bills. That's great.
Yep.
But what
Exactly.
happens when it's personal to you and the only two options that you can give somebody and they tell you no?
Hmm.
Where in our like off of that our scenario, let's say, you call F and G and they're like, we can't for the not for this person because of whatever, XYZ
Yeah.
reason.
Hmm.
And you turn around, National Life Group's like, yeah, who cares? Yeah, we got it here.
Yeah, we got you.
Done. No
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm.
And like you said, you have your due diligence of being able to, go through a bunch of different carriers. And that's I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And I love that that's immediately where you went with it. Like
Yeah, we give them
that's what
options,
I
man.
tell everybody. That's the big one I like is that we have
Hmm.
so many options
Hmm.
and no quotas, which instead of
Huge. Huge.
not having a quota, it doesn't become about the money. Like obviously, I always say we're not running a charity.
Right. We got to pay our own
Obviously,
bills
we're
too.
we're getting
Yeah.
we're getting compensated, obviously, but we're not going to do it to make a buck. Like I'll
Hmm.
take the $30 a month premium, give it to somebody, and I might make $100.
Right.
I
Right.
don't care because
Exactly.
I still gave you I would give you the same service. You get the same protection that I would if I sold it to you and I made $2,000.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like I think that's a big thing. That's part of what I love about it. You know.
So true.
Um, let's move one more quick question, and I know we're running a little long here, but I got one more quick.
You're good.
Were there any, and this can be for you personally and any agents that you've brought in, so it's kind of a two-pronged question. Was there any pre-beliefs that you might have had about this industry, good or negative, um, that since being in it, that you or any agents that you've had, maybe like if it's a bad one, like a lot of people have been burned by this industry. That's a
Hmm.
big thing just early that I've learned. Is there, little different beliefs that people that weren't in the industry back in the day or not now, that you went in and went, man, that's not at all what it really is. Or on the good side of it too, in terms of like, well, this is even better than what I thought it was. Have you had any of that?
I have actually. At my previous company, my practice company, we only done final expense. And so I came into this industry at one point only thinking I can do one service. Like life insurance is only about death. It's only
Mhm.
about death. It ain't really about nothing else. And learning that life insurance is more than just covering someone's burial. Actually give them living benefits and give them living opportunities to where they can, have a better opportunity to create wealth the right way in the fastest and simplest and most protective way. And if you have wealth already, help you protect that and help you orchestrate a way that you don't never outlive your income. Like we always say all the time, Jacob, is that I had a belief that when you retire, that when you had a 401k or 403b when I was growing up, that's it. That's all you needed to worry about.
Yep.
And so that belief in mine, that was the end all be all. Well, now knowing what I know now as a financial service specialist, man, dude, there is so much more out there that people do not have a clue that you can actually turn on and help and add on to your protection that you'll never outlive your income and you'll pass that income on to your family without ever going through probate or even worry about taxes.
Hmm.
How else in the industry can you not pay taxes?
It's the only thing
And
I've ever heard of where you didn't have to.
right, yeah. So that was one disbelief. Yeah, that was one disbelief that I had to overcome. You know that it wasn't just about death.
Yeah.
And the next disbelief, man, I had two of them. The next disbelief was that people come into this industry, and man, there's a lot of people that come in who do not, how can I put, they do not believe in themselves. Like they don't
Hmm.
have that self motivation or that self driver to help them overcome the negative days and the bad days and the when you are dialing leads and you're talking to clients and you get a hold of somebody who's had a bad day and they'll cuss you all to pieces and they're like, oh God, I can't do this, I give up. Those are the people that they don't have that. They need somebody in their corner to kind of help push them along and help them by having in mind already the self motivational type that okay, I want to get cussed out by this guy. Man, why are you so mad for it? Why are you so angry? And change that mindset to where things happen for you and not to you. That you're just there to help them with service because at one point they raised their hand.
Hmm.
And when you change that mindset and as Brad talks about all the time, you change your mindset, you change your skill set, and you change your habits. That's when you start to add in income to yourself. But not only income, you actually get to start adding in helping people. When I changed my mindset and my skill set, my habits quickly began to follow those two things. And then my insurance agency started growing. I went from 2 agents, 4 agents, 6 agents, 8 agents, 12 agents, 14 agents, and it's just continuing growing. And now we have an office space. I mean, we're growing just because when you change that belief system to where things happen for you, not to you, things start to follow in place. But it starts with you. You have to have that ability to where okay, I'm going to achieve this goal that I'm setting out for me and my family and my agents, with or without anybody's negativity going to affect me any. There's my goal, and I'm going for it. And I'll say this, Andy Frisella does this. He has this little, like we have the rhino here on our shirts. The rhinos ain't afraid, they charge head first. But Andy Frisella has his logo is a buffalo.
Hmm.
And the buffalo is the only animal that when a storm comes, they run head first into a storm. Lightning, thunder, tornado, don't matter. The buffaloes run headstorm into it because most animals will run in the opposite direction. And then when the buffalo runs head into the storm, that means they're going to have less time in that storm. They're going to run in it and run through it and be done because the storm's already passed on the other side. Now, the other animals that's running cowardly away from the storm, trying to hide and trying to find ways out of it, they're constantly running out of the storm, running away from the storm much longer. And so the same correlation to the belief system that you spoke of is that when someone believes that they can do this, they're going to head first into the storm. They're going to weather the storm. They're going to go through the hardships and the hard times, and they're going to come out on the other side in victory. Versus the ones who are going to cowardly and run away from the storm, they're going to be running and they're going to be on the edge of their seat the entire time, and never, not one bit of time, but it'll give a time when they go and breathe
Hmm.
because they're always running. And so that's where my mindset goes when you say that.
And that's again, like a better term, man. That's church, but it's so true. Like that's again my short time doing that. Like that's half the battle is
Hmm. Right
prayer.
there. Yeah, with
That's
20
half the
years.
battle, you know. So Terry, tell everybody where can they find you at on social media?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So if you guys want to find me on Instagram, it's insurance with Terry or Terry Spurlock Terry Spurlock dot real financial. Either one, insurance with Terry or Terry Spurlock real financial. And most of my handles are the same way. Facebook's just Terry Spurlock. Nothing special. But yeah, that's where you can find me on any social. I just keep my name pretty straightforward, guys. If you want to come follow me, it's great. It's awesome. I put out a couple good nuggets a week. I try to do like different little, just a little tidbits, a little bit of education. Everybody needs a little education here and there.
And that's listen, guys. If you guys want to get something, obviously you have my stuff because that's why you're here. But I'm telling you, he's always getting out some good stuff. So go ahead and give him a follow on all his stuff. And Terry, I very much appreciate you coming on doing this, brother.
Hey, Jacob, appreciate you having me, brother.
All right, we will see you guys next time. Thanks again, Terry.
See y'all.
All right, bye.